Tonight, can they fix Washington now? The politicians who brought us gridlock are re-elected.
Tonight, you voted for action, not politics as usual.
Let's rise above the dysfunction and do the right thing together for our country.
Reports from Nancy Cordes, Dean Reynolds, and Anthony Mason. A countdown begins to automatic tax increases and huge budget cuts. Wyatt Andrews on the fiscal cliff. A nor'easter bears down on shores ravaged by Sandy. Ben Tracy is there. We'll have the forecast.
I don't know if we can mentally handle another storm.
And one secret to the president's success was the changing face of America. Anna Werner on the new voters who helped push him over the top.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
Good evening. This is a special one-hour edition. $6 billion was spent on political campaigns, and when they were over, nothing much changed. Republicans will still control the House, Democrats the Senate, and Barack Obama will still be president. This was the scene tonight as the president and the first family returned from Chicago aboard Air Force One. They landed at Joint Base Andrews right outside Washington, D.C. We will have a look at what you can expect from Washington in the future, but first, the latest returns. We still can't project a winner in the presidential contest in Florida, but even without Florida, Mr. Obama has 303 electoral votes, well over the 270 needed for victory. Mitt Romney ended up with 206. This is the popular vote total. They're still counting, but the president is ahead by nearly 3 million votes. In his victory celebration last night, the president said, quote, "The best is yet to come." He's been calling congressional leaders, and both the president and Republican House Speaker John Boehner are talking about a new spirit of cooperation. But there are battles ahead, and we have a team of correspondents covering this fresh start with old players in Washington. First, Nancy Cordes with the president.
The president and his family boarded Air Force One in Chicago this afternoon after a visit to campaign headquarters where President Obama embraced his campaign manager, Jim Messina, and elated staffers and volunteers. Despite all the talk beforehand of a razor-tight race, in the end, President Obama captured all but 2 of the states he won in 2008.
I just spoke with Governor Romney, and I congratulated him and Paul Ryan on a hard-fought campaign. We may have battled fiercely, but it's only because we love this country deeply, and we care so strongly about its future.
Before a cheering crowd of thousands in South Chicago, President Obama laid out an ambitious second-term agenda: deficit reduction, tax code reform, immigration reform, and energy independence. Big goals that have inspired and divided the two parties for decades.
We are not as divided as our politics suggests. We're not as cynical as the pundits believe. We are greater than the sum of our individual ambitions, and we remain more than a collection of red states and blue states. We are and forever will be the United States of America.
But he acknowledged that this bruising campaign, with its billion-dollar barrage of negative ads, had left hard feelings that he hoped to overcome.
And whether I earned your vote or not, I have listened to you. I have learned from you. And you've made me a better president. And with your stories and your struggles, I return to the White House more determined and more inspired than ever about the work there is to do and the future that lies ahead.
The president will not have much time to savor his victory. The most pressing issue on his plate is the fiscal cliff, that toxic mix of steep spending cuts and tax increases set to go into effect at the end of the year. Economists have warned that it could plunge the country into another recession, but Republicans and Democrats, Scott, have put off negotiating for a solution in earnest for months because they've been awaiting the outcome of this election.
Nancy, we were talking in the newsroom today about major cabinet changes that are expected.
That's right. Two of the president's top cabinet secretaries have indicated that they'd like to step down at the end of this first term. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner. Now, they likely won't be leaving right away. The president will have to choose successors, and those successors will have to go through Senate confirmation hearings. So it could be the start of the new year before they depart.
Nancy, thanks very much. We mentioned a moment ago that Florida's undecided. Well, here's the latest. More than 8 million votes were cast, and between the two, there are only 50,000 votes between the candidates. The president is leading by a little over 50,000 votes there. In his victory speech last night, the president said that he had, quote, the best campaign team and volunteers in the history of politics. You could forgive him for the hyperbole, but there is no arguing with the success. Here's Dean Reynolds.
4 more years, baby.
In Ohio, the foot soldiers of the Obama campaign packed up today and headed back to their lives. Volunteers from as far away as Washington, D.C.
Bye, Ohio!
The seemingly ever-present face of the campaign here and the other battlegrounds had been micromanaged by the architects of the 2008 victory. David Axelrod, the president's trusted advisor, David Plouffe, a senior strategist, and national campaign manager Jim Messina.
The high point was this weekend. 5.2 million doors we knocked on just this weekend. 18 months of building it for this moment and watching our neighborhood team leaders take it over and say it's our campaign.
A high-tech trove of demographic data, including stuff like a voter's favorite TV show, fueled calls and blazed trails, not just to neighborhoods, but to specific homes and individuals inside them. In Ohio, 21,000 volunteers worked the campaigns last weekend, the spearhead of 139 field offices statewide. Mitt Romney had 40. Chris Redfern is chairman of Ohio's Democrats.
We have an intimate relationship with the voters we're focusing on. That door knock, that screen door knock, that occurs not once, twice, 3 times, but 4 and 5 times over the course of a summer into the fall.
You voted?
When necessary,
anyone need to vote?
The approach was low-tech, scooping strangers off the street and driving them to the polls to build an early voting lead.
Is she going to early vote?
Yeah. Then there was the ad blitz that began this summer.
We all just lost our jobs.
It defined Mitt Romney as an exploitative businessman unconcerned about the middle class.
Hi, how are you?
But Jim Messina said ultimately it was the face-to-face contact that sealed the deal.
We invested in the grassroots. And for a year, people said, why are they spending so much money in these states? And we were helping local people build a volunteer grassroots army out there to talk to their friends.
Now, that kind of contact worked very well for the president with early voters here, Scott, and it staked him to a more than 200,000 vote lead in that category.
It certainly worked, Dean. Thanks very much. All day long yesterday, we were talking to voters as they left the polls all across the country. Anthony Mason is in Studio 57. Anthony, what did the voters tell us about why they voted the way they did?
Scott, the president built his re-election victory around the same coalition that put him in the White House 4 years ago. We saw a pronounced gender gap in our exit polls. Governor Romney won men by 7 percentage points, but President Obama won women by an even wider margin, 55 to 44%, 11 percentage points. Now, the president's support among white voters did decline, but he increased his margins among Hispanics, taking 71% of the Hispanic vote and a bigger margin, 93%. Of the African-American vote. But this wasn't just about demographics. We asked voters who was more in touch with people like them. President Obama came out on top here by 53 to 43%. And more than half of the voters we talked to said they saw Mitt Romney's policies as favoring the rich. Only about a third said they favored the middle class. Governor Romney campaigned as a business leader who could create jobs and fix the economy. But when we asked who'd do a better job of handling the economy, Romney ended up with only about a 1-point advantage here, 49 to 48%. So the president effectively neutralized the economy issue, which had been thought to be so dangerous for him. Scott?
Anthony, thanks very much. As Nancy Cordes was just telling us, we're about 7 weeks from those automatic tax increases and budget cuts that are due to kick in automatically. Congress designed the so-called fiscal cliff to be so painful that it would force a compromise between the White House and Capitol Hill. But the voters have returned the same politicians who couldn't reach a deal last time. Here's Wyatt Andrews.
Just weeks away from now looms the so-called fiscal cliff.
Under pressure from the fiscal cliff, House Speaker John Boehner started a public negotiation with the president, saying Republicans would accept an increase in tax revenues if they're tied to tax and entitlement reform. Day one after the election, and the speaker said it was clear voters want solutions.
Mr. President, this is your moment. We're ready to be led.
But what sounded like a concession was mostly a challenge. Boehner specifically rejected the way the president would raise revenues, higher taxes on upper-income Americans.
Feeding the growth of government through higher tax rates won't help us solve the problem.
God bless you. The president's plan to ask more of the wealthy, what he calls the balanced approach to deficit reduction, was his core argument in the campaign and central to his mandate. He made that clear in this interview with the CBS Evening News in September.
The message that will be sent by voters this time out, if I'm reelected, will be we're not satisfied with the pace of progress, but we do think that the ideas the president has presented are the right ones, and we'd like to see greater cooperation.
1 year ago, in the summer of 2011, these same two men, the Speaker and the President, worked for weeks on what was known as the Grand Bargain. The President offered tax reform and $4 trillion in deficit reductions if Boehner could sell Republicans on that upper-income tax increase. Boehner could not, and what resulted instead were the outlines of the fiscal cliff. The Speaker is now floating the idea of a different grand bargain. Scott, the idea is to delay the entire fiscal cliff for a year to give Congress the time to work on tax and entitlement reform.
Wyatt, thanks. John Dickerson is our CBS News political director. John, you just heard what Wyatt said. Does that sound like the beginning of progress?
Well, they're both talking, the president and Republican leaders are talking about cooperation. And after the 2010 election, there was a little flurry of activity. One thing that has changed that might suggest that both sides can work together is that because the president's no longer up for re-election, Republicans can work with him and know they're not helping his political fortunes. Now, they still have to calculate their own political fortunes, and that's underway. The election was just yesterday. Let's look at Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate. Well, he's got a re-election in 2014. Does he cooperate because he's up for re-election, or does he not cooperate because he's worried about a conservative primary challenge? John Boehner, the House leader, he might want to cooperate, but he's got 230-plus Republicans, all of whom are taking a different message from this election, some of whom were re-elected because they said they don't want to cooperate. The president's motivation, he wants to get this so-called fiscal cliff out of the way so he can work on those bigger issues Nancy talked about, energy, immigration, so that's what motivates him. In the end, the players didn't change. The question is whether their motivations did.
John, thank you very much. The big story in the Northeast wasn't politics today, but the nor'easter that just blew in. The same places that were swamped by Sandy are getting lashed tonight by high winds, rain, snow, and an angry sea that threatens to flood the shoreline all over again. More evacuations have been ordered, and New Jersey Governor Chris Christie may have had the best line when he said that he was waiting for the locusts and the pestilence next. More than 600,000 homes and businesses in 6 states are still without power 9 days after Sandy. That number may grow with tonight's storm. Ben Tracy is on the New Jersey shore.
Today in Belmar, city crews rush to rebuild the sand dunes wiped out by Hurricane Sandy.
So how much faith do you have in this wall? You know, if we did this for Sandy, it would have been laughed at by the waves.
But Belmar Mayor Matt Doherty hopes these new barriers will be enough to keep the nor'easter from flooding his town again. For the past week, Belmar has been pumping out 60,000 gallons of water per minute. The pumps will stay on during this second storm.
We want to be aggressive about protecting our community from anything that this storm brings to us.
Further south in Brick Township, Mayor Stephen Acropolis ordered the evacuation of nearly 10,000 people.
After what people just went through, I would think that most people will not stay.
What's your plan? The DiLorenzos stayed through Sandy, but they're leaving this time. Their home is barely livable.
I don't know if we can mentally handle another storm. It was terrifying staying here. We were the only people on this whole block.
For 2 days, front loaders have been hauling away Sandy's wreckage, so this storm doesn't blow it back through town. More than 2 million people in New Jersey have had their power restored since Sandy, but 60-mile-per-hour winds could put many of them back in the dark. Steve Sanzo hasn't had power for 10 days, but he still plans to stay.
The mayor's telling everyone it's time to go. What do you say to him?
I say there's been many, many, many nor'easters that we've had here. We can't run from this one. I won't be going, I'll be staying.
As if the wind and the rain weren't bad enough, now the folks along the Jersey Shore are dealing with this. Late this afternoon, the temperatures here dropped to about 32 degrees, and the snow's coming down pretty good. Scott, this is adding insult to injury for the folks tonight with no electricity and no heat.
Ben, thank you very much. Hispanics played a big role in the president's re-election last night. We'll look at why so many of them did not vote Republican when this one-hour edition of the CBS Evening News continues. $4 million more Hispanics were eligible to vote yesterday than in the previous presidential election. 4 million. We asked Anna Werner to tell us what that meant for President Obama.
At Mi Familia Vota, a nonpartisan Latino group, volunteers work the phones to get Hispanics to the polls.
Today, I want you guys to give it your all.
Outreach efforts like this one helped President Obama beat Mitt Romney among Hispanic voters by 3-1 in Nevada, costing the Republicans the White House.
They think about us almost like a second thought. They say, well, we need to have Hispanic. If not, we might not be able to win.
Las Vegas businessman Otto Merida, a Republican for 40 years, says many in his party need to learn to reach out too, and to soften their stance on immigration, such as on programs to give illegal immigrants permission to work if they were brought to the U.S. as children.
Right now, as it stands, do you believe that there are enough Republicans who really believe in compromise on immigration?
I want to believe that we believe.
Do you believe it right now?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think because if I don't believe it, then I wouldn't be able to be a Republican.
In Florida, Colorado, and Nevada, the percentage of the electorate that is Hispanic has increased 1 percentage point or more in the last 4 years. By 2016, at least 2 million more Latinos will be eligible to vote. The Obama campaign went out of its way to reach Hispanics, airing this ad in key markets.
Que ningún obstáculo es muy grande.
It's that sensitivity that Mi Familia's Leo Murrieta says was missing from the Romney campaign.
We just want to be taken seriously. Today, we showed them that we demand it at the ballot box. They can't ignore us. We're here. We're voting, we're paying attention.
To get a sense of the numbers here, Scott, that National Association of Latino Officials tells us that every 30 seconds in this country, a Latino citizen turns 18 years of age. That adds some 50,000 new potential voters in the Latino community every single month.
Anna, thanks very much. This man's video triggered protests across the Arab world. Why he's headed to jail next. The California man whose anti-Islamic video triggered protests across the Arab world was sentenced to 1 year in prison today. A judge ruled that 55-year-old Basili Youssef had violated the terms of his probation on a bank fraud conviction. He wasn't supposed to use the internet, but he posted the 13-minute video online. We have the results of some ballot initiatives worth noting. In a number of states, Maine and Maryland became the first to approve same-sex marriage by a popular vote. A similar measure in Washington state is still undecided. Voters there and in Colorado passed measures to legalize the recreational use of marijuana. That sets up a showdown with the federal government. And Californians passed Proposition 30, a tax increase to raise money for schools. In a moment, Bob Schieffer on the president's victory and what comes next. Bob Schieffer, our chief Washington correspondent and anchor of Face the Nation, is joining us now. And Bob, I wonder what you've been reflecting on after the president's re-election.
Well, first, that it is finally done, Scott. The president who rode a wave of hope to a historic victory in 2008 has been returned to office in an election of a different kind. Unlike his first election, this one was not won on lofty goals and sometimes unrealistic expectations. This was a tactical victory. As the Washington Post observed, he ran a partisan campaign to secure more time to find bipartisanship. It won't be easy, but there must be a reset in relations between the White House and Congress. The problems are so severe, neither side can resolve them without help from the other. Perhaps the way New Jersey Republican Governor Chris Christie and the president worked together to help the hurricane victims can be the example that reminds Washington what it seems to have forgotten. Doing the right thing is usually the best politics. In the hard world of American politics, the president did not get a mandate yesterday. What Americans gave him was a second chance.
Bob, thanks for being the key to our coverage last night. Good evening again. And for those of you just joining us, this is a special expanded edition. Let's take a look at the electoral vote count that gave President Obama his victory yesterday over Mitt Romney. Keep in mind, we have not yet projected a winner in Florida, but you see the president's states in blue, the states that have gone for Mitt Romney in red. Mr. Obama with 303 electoral votes, and of course, 270 is what is necessary to win the presidency. Now have a look at the popular vote. These are the actual votes cast by Americans all across the country. President Obama in the lead there also by about 3 million votes as those numbers continue to be counted in many states. Nancy Cordes, who covered the Obama campaign, is at the White House, where President Obama has just returned from Chicago and where he will be spending the next 4 years. Nancy?
Scott, the president is back at the White House this evening, and based on the things he's been saying today, it seems he wants to try to hit the reset button with Republican congressional leaders. He called leaders from both parties this morning and told them that the American people had sent a message in this election that they want the two sides to work together. He also laid out in that victory speech a pretty complicated set of goals for the next 4 years. Take a listen.
You voted for action, not politics as usual. You elected us to focus on your jobs, not ours. And in the coming weeks and months, I am looking forward to reaching out and working with leaders of both parties to meet the challenges we can only solve together. Reducing our deficit, reforming our tax code, fixing our immigration system, freeing ourselves from foreign oil. We've got more work to do.
Those are goals, he said, that are shared by both parties, and that's true. The challenge is that the two parties see the solutions to these problems very differently. Take tax reform, for example. The president has been out on the campaign trail calling for taxes to be raised on the wealthiest Americans, while House Speaker John Boehner, talking to his Republican caucus today, said that there is no mandate from the American people to raise taxes on anyone. He asked them to stand behind them and stand behind him on that issue. So compromise is going to be very difficult, Scott.
Nancy, thanks very much. Now, let's take a look at the presidential vote count in Florida. The only mystery that's left, it's still too close to project a winner. 97% of the vote has been counted there. And as you can see, just about 45,000 votes between them out of 8 million cast. It won't make a difference. Even if Mitt Romney were to win Florida, it would not be nearly enough to take him over 270 electoral votes. The president has been re-elected. Elaine Quijano has been covering this battle for Florida, and she joins us tonight. Elaine?
Good evening, Scott. Well, there are still tens of thousands of absentee and provisional ballots still being counted. That's why a day after the election, there is still no official winner here.
Some voters in Miami waited up to 6 hours to cast their ballot.
Is it worth it? No, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's ridiculous. They didn't plan correctly.
Miami-Dade was one of 9 counties still tallying votes this morning. Election officials blamed high turnout and multi-page ballots that included 11 state constitutional amendments. Earl Leonard is the supervisor of elections in Hillsborough County.
There was 3 pages front and back, which equals 6 pages actually of ballot.
You had 6 pages of ballot. Okay.
6 pages of ballot, and so it takes a longer period of time, of course, to process the ballot. It also takes a longer period of time for a voter to vote that ballot.
The vote count was complicated by 4.5 million early voting and absentee ballots filed statewide, the most ever. In Hillsborough County, thousands of absentee ballots were submitted just ahead of a 7 p.m. deadline.
Every vote does count, and we must count every vote. We would rather do it right than we had to rush through at 2 o'clock in the morning and not have it correctly done.
The Florida election, Scott, won't be certified until November 20th, after county canvassing boards deliver their results and the deadline passes for military overseas ballots.
Elaine, thank you. The president made history last night. No president has ever won re-election since FDR, with the unemployment rate as high as it is now, 7.9%. The jobless rate back then was 17%. On Wall Street, stocks fell sharply today. The Dow lost nearly 313 points, the biggest drop of the year, and it closed below 13,000 for the first time in 3 months. Mark Phillips now to tell us about the economic turmoil overseas that had a lot to do with the sell-off.
If Barack Obama needed a reminder that the world's economic problems don't stop for American elections, it was provided in Athens. Protesters threw firebombs and police used water cannons for the first time in years as Greece's economic crisis once again spilled onto the streets. The Greek parliament approved yet another set of spending cuts and tax rises being demanded by the European Union before it hands over about $40 billion more of bailout money to the bankrupt country. Many here feel they've already been squeezed more than they can bear. The euro crisis was the topic at a crucial meeting of the German Chancellor and British Prime Minister. But David Cameron and Angela Merkel now have to cope with a new series of gloomy economic numbers.
Right, got it.
The trading floors of London were rocked by predictions of even deeper European recession, with high unemployment lasting at least another 3 years. Europe's crisis and America's are linked. And economic analysts like Mike Ingram of London's BGC brokerage firm say neither has found a way out.
Whichever part of the world you're looking at, whichever starting point you're proceeding from, everybody's grappling for a new growth formula. Is it austerity first? Is it government spending first? The problem is nothing that seems to have been tried up to this point has actually delivered the goods.
It was a good day to demonstrate how the great European economic cold is still highly contagious. The same president may be in office in Washington, but the same problems of debt and economic stagnation are still a drag on both sides of the Atlantic. Mark Phillips, CBS News, London.
Mitt Romney devoted nearly 6 years of his life to seeking the presidency. When that quest ended in defeat last night, he said that he and his running mate Paul Ryan had done the best that they could.
Like so many of you, Paul and I have left everything on the field. We have given our all to this campaign. I so wish that I had been able to fulfill your hopes to lead the country in a different direction, but the nation chose another leader, and so Ann and I join with you to earnestly pray for him and for this great nation.
Jan Crawford has been covering the Romney campaign for us every step of the way, and she joins us from Boston. Jan, I wonder how Mitt Romney was feeling last night when he was making that concession speech.
Well, Scott, you can see it. He looked absolutely shell-shocked in that speech, and that's because his entire campaign, they thought they were going to win. They simply did not believe the president was going to get the same kind of turnout he got in 2008. They thought intensity and enthusiasm were on their side this time, and that was going to translate into votes for Romney, and that drove their campaign strategy. Their internal polling showed them leading in key states, so they decided to make a play for a broad victory, to go to places like Pennsylvania. But all those assessments were wrong. strong the president's base turned out, and in key areas it actually exceeded his 2008 levels, and of course the Republicans just did not. One advisor told me today it was like a sucker punch for Romney and his wife Ann, his family, his running mate, and they took the stage last night. They were still trying to process what had just happened. You can see his wife Ann, she looks stricken, as does Paul Ryan's wife Jana. Look at their faces. You can see the emotion there on their faces. Romney actually had only written a victory speech. He had to cobble together those brief and I thought what were pretty heartfelt remarks. They were clearly unrehearsed. Now, today he spent that with his family. He talked with close friends. He talked this afternoon with his campaign staff. But Scott, this is not only the end of this campaign for him, but it's really the end of his political life. His wife Ann said last month that he is not going to be running for public office again.
Jan, thanks very much and great job on the campaign.
Thank you, Scott.
Boston is just one of the cities being hit by a nor'easter tonight, along with the same communities devastated by Sandy last week. Gale force winds, heavy snow, and a new storm surge threaten to flood the coast all over again. Evacuations have been ordered in low-lying areas in New York and New Jersey. Some homes that had just had their power restored have lost it again. As one man put it, it's like a sequel to a horror movie. Sandy has left tens of thousands homeless. Seth Doan is on Staten Island, where those sent in to help are moving out tonight.
Instead of distributing aid, volunteer Bill Hine helped pack it up.
Why is this area getting shut down?
We're totally exposed. When that wind comes off the water tonight, it's not going to be pretty.
Today, the FEMA tent was closed, delaying help to the thousands looking for shelter. Yesterday, Awad Abdullah had waited for hours.
Nobody taking my call. Nobody taking my phone.
You've been calling FEMA? How many times?
I'm calling over 20 times. Okay, this is why I'm coming here, stay in the line now, try to find somebody to take care of me or to help me.
If the steps were in here, the house would have just floated.
Lisa Cusick had also been waiting for FEMA. Her home was pushed off its foundation in the hurricane.
When you go to look for something, it's not there.
Like what?
Like everything. Like your clothes and pictures and...
You got hit pretty bad out of everyone else, huh?
Yeah.
Andrew Caldwell, a FEMA contractor, will help determine if she's eligible for emergency aid.
It's almost a residential rebuild. I mean, it's shifted from the foundation.
Meaning it's totaled in the way?
Yeah, it's pretty much destroyed.
If approved, Cusick could receive up to $1,400 a month in a temporary housing subsidy. She'd get 2 months with a possible extension.
Is $1,400 a month enough to do anything?
Not in New York. It's not enough for rent. But I didn't start looking yet, so at least it's something.
But with so many others doing the same thing, she's worried there won't be much choice. We took her question to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
We talked with a woman named Lisa who says even if she gets temporary housing assistance, she's afraid she won't be able to find a place to live.
We're talking about record numbers of people who are going to need housing, somewhere between 20,000 and 40,000 people. We're not sure yet. So it is going to be a long, long road.
This storm is slowing relief efforts. Scott, earlier today we were with police as they drove through this hard-hit neighborhood and encouraged people to evacuate once again.
Well, snow on top of the misery. Seth, where are these people going that are being ordered to evacuate?
Well, some with family, some with friends. One man showed me a website that FEMA gave to him to find the closest available hotel room. That hotel room, Scott, was hours away in Albany.
Seth, thank you very much. You might be surprised when you see who's guiding rescue workers in the disaster zone. And this was a historic election for women. We'll show you why when this expanded edition of the CBS Evening News continues. Before last night, Republicans thought they had a good shot at taking back control of the Senate, but it didn't work out that way. Chief National Correspondent Byron Pitts has been following the Senate races for us. Byron?
Well, Scott, Republicans needed 4 seats to regain control of the Senate, but the Democrats held them off. As we can see here, Democrats hold 54 seats to the Republicans' 45 seats. Add an independent Angus King of Maine, who was thought likely to caucus with the Democrats, and we can see they had a good night. For the first time in the history of the nation, a record number of women are going into the Senate. Of the 33 seats up for election yesterday, women won 11. All 6 incumbent Democratic senators won re-election, from Maria Cantwell of Washington State to Kirsten Gillibrand of New York. Joining them were 4 new Democratic senators, including Wisconsin's Tammy Baldwin, Hawaii's Mazie Hirono, and Massachusetts' Elizabeth Warren. All are the first female senators from their states. Democrat Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota is expected to join them. And there's one Republican, Deb Fischer of Nebraska. So for the first time in Senate history, women will hold 20 seats. That's 1/5 or 20% of the chamber. And Scott, while that's an accomplishment, we all should keep in mind, women are 51% of the U.S. population.
Well noted. Byron, thanks very much. When the new 113th Congress convenes in January, it will have the most Hispanic members ever, at least 29 in the House of Representatives. 7 were elected for the first time yesterday. Over in the Senate, Texas Republican Ted Cruz will join 2 other Hispanics, Robert Menendez of New Jersey and Marco Rubio of Florida. Voters in 2 states say yes to legalizing marijuana. That story's next. Voters in Washington state and Colorado took a deep breath and approved ballot initiatives that legalize marijuana for recreational use. Now, you might be wondering if they can really do that. So we asked Barry Peterson to look into it.
Some called it an election night Rocky Mountain High, a party celebrating the passage of a state constitutional amendment making an ounce of marijuana for personal use legal. But the morning after brought warnings that federal law prohibits marijuana possession, even though federal prosecutors have discretion about enforcement. The Department of Justice pointed to a memo from the Deputy Attorney General. Persons who are in the business of cultivating, selling, or distributing marijuana are in violation of the Controlled Substances Act, regardless of state law. That left Colorado's governor caught between federal law and his state.
Will you be advocating for this law with the federal government?
I think, as most people know, I didn't support the initiative, but you can't argue with the will of the voters, right? We are here in a democracy, and the sentiment was pretty clear.
18 states, including Colorado, now allow pot to be sold for medical purposes. In Colorado, it pours $11 million a year into state coffers.
The biodiesel?
Yes, please.
Kevan Kalatbari owns one of the roughly 500 dispensaries here.
Do you see a day coming when I can walk into a convenience store or grocery store or whatever and say, give me a pack of marijuana cigarettes?
If you're 21 years old and you have the identification to prove it, definitely.
The new amendment says revenue from sales taxes would go to school funding. But law enforcement officials like Jefferson County Sheriff Ted Mink say their higher cost could offset any financial benefit.
When you increase the use, which will happen, then the treatment that goes along with abuse and addiction increases as well.
One of the arguments against this was that it would turn Colorado into a marijuana tourism state. Are you comfortable being the governor of that kind of a state?
How people think about Colorado, this would not be my first choice. I can only imagine, what Jay Leno and company are going to be saying over the next week or two, right? There'll be lots of jokes, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of snack foods discussed.
The new amendment could take effect early next year if certified by state officials, unless the federal government files a lawsuit. And then it could take months or years to decide if legal personal marijuana use is really going to happen here. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Denver.
That deadly meningitis outbreak linked to tainted steroids produced by a specialty pharmacy in Massachusetts has claimed another life today. Now 31 are dead. More than 400 people in 19 states have been sickened. The pharmacy has been shut down, but investigations continue. After Sandy, one community was helpless until some unlikely heroes took charge. We'll have that next. Finally tonight, we've seen the agony caused by a storm named Sandy. Homes destroyed, families left in the dark, fistfights on gas lines. But there are always stories about our better nature, and Michelle Miller found one for us.
Suleika Cox has been navigating darkened hallways and staircases in Rockaway, Queens for 3 days. The 17-year-old is handing out food, water, and flashlights to people stranded in their apartments.
Thank you. There are times when it might be overwhelming, but then I think about what we're actually doing and how many families that we've been able to affect positively. I think in the last few days we've reached over 500 families, so knowing that helps me and keeps me going. Hello.
Cox is a foot soldier in a relief force recruited by 23-year-old Milan Taylor.
It's really time for us to prove that we're willing to step up and we're able to step up.
The college student directs the effort from his smartphone.
Where did you get all this food? We put out a call on Facebook and the supplies and the food just started to come pouring in.
He's enlisted more than 100 teens and 20-somethings to help their neighborhood.
What would you be doing if you weren't here today?
Right now, I think I would be in school right now.
You guys all right over here?
At the core of his band of volunteers is the community group he founded a year and a half ago to mentor kids. He spent the group's last $500 to buy diapers and blankets.
There's no community leadership guiding FEMA, guiding the Red Cross, because they're not from this community, so they don't know where the needs are.
In less than a week, they've figured out how to distribute 2 days' worth of supplies to 3 apartment houses. FEMA has set up a distribution trailer less than 3 miles away, but it might as well be 1,000 for the elderly who live here.
They're saying, honestly, that they wouldn't know what they would do without us. There needs to be a little bit more faith putting young people and our capabilities and what we're able to do.
While many in Rockaway are without power, they've discovered they're not powerless.
You guys are wonderful. You're doing a great job.
Michelle Miller, CBS News, Queens, New York.
And that's our special expanded edition of the CBS Evening News for tonight. For all of us at CBS News all around the world, good night.